Okay, it's going. My name's Joe Kaborek. I'm a student at UCF. I'm at the Hopper Academy in Georgetown neighborhood of Sanford, Florida. The date's Saturday, October 15th, 2022. With me is Samuel Wright.
The third.
What is it?
The third. I'm the
Samuel Wright III.
Yep.
Could you please state your name and tell me about yourself?
Okay, my name is Samuel Wright III. As a kid, I grew up on the corner, started off the corner of Locust and Saturday Avenue. At that time, my granddad is Samuel Wright Sr., my dad was Samuel Wright Jr., and he had just finished up college. We moved from Tallahassee back here, and we was in the family house until we moved out into Washington Oaks. That's a subdivision on the other side of Sanford. And so my conversation more of being able to be around my granddad, who was Samuel Wright Jr., Sr., and my dad, Samuel Wright Jr. They all played a part in Sanford, played a part in the growth of Georgetown, played a part in the growth of Sanford itself. My granddad had a business on Sanford Avenue. My dad was a teacher over in Volusia County. My dad, there's a suit against the city of Sanford to have us to vote and all that kind of stuff, and he played a part in that. My granddad played a little bit of part of everything because he was a businessman, and I'm just proud to be a part of all of that as a kid, because we're talking about, for myself, the 60s, the 70s, when I was getting into my late teens and early 20s. And I'm just proud to have been a part and watch what went on, because my dad was really one of the first black politicians to run for office. He didn't get elected, but he was one of the first, and I think that was 68 or something, 1968. And so when I heard that there was going to be conversations and stories, as I said to myself, well, you know, the name has been around a long time, and I want to make sure somewhere in writing that those other two names be a part of this, because like I said, he had a business, and also he fixed on washing machines, and he fixed on everything, my granddad. And so most of the people, the lady who ran the funeral home, they was good friends. Anybody that was in this area knew my granddad. And so I just wanted to throw some of that information out, since this was about history. Those individuals played a very big part in the growth of Georgetown.
What did your grandfather do as a businessman?
He had a barber shop.
Okay.
He had a barber shop on Sanford Avenue at that time. On Sanford Avenue, you had Dr. Stocks, you had Dr. Stapler, who had a pharmacy. You had Dr. Wrangling, that was a dentist. All these individuals, my granddad knew, and I got to meet them through my granddad, because I was with my grandma and my granddad while my parents was in college at FAMU. So as the oldest grandchild, my granddad used to take me around with him, and I got a chance to meet all these different businessmen. I can't think of Ingrid married name, but her dad had a funeral home on the corner. So all these individuals, my granddad as a kid, I had a chance to run into. And so when they talk about businesses, there always been businesses, and so it's not businesses of being something new. It's just that as segregation came along, things changed. When integration came along, things changed. And so, you know, I just want to throw some of that information out there.
Okay. And what did your father do? Was he part of Georgetown as well? Was he a politician?
Yeah. When he did ran his campaign, at that time he was living on Locust. So we all was living with his dad, and eventually we moved out and got a house out there in Washington Oaks. But we was all in the same house, so we had Samuel Wright Sr., Samuel Wright Jr., and Samuel Wright III, all in one house.
Okay. What do you specifically remember about growing up? You have a lot of church relations, school relations?
Well, when you say church, my grandma and granddad kept me in the church. And it was St. James, historical St. James, right around the corner from here. And so, I grew up in the church. You name it, I was kind of like a part of it, certainly in my early years. One of the first Boy Scout troops, Black Boy Scout troops, I was a part of it. I think my dad and a couple other guys got together and put a troop together. And so growing up in high school, we was the first group to go over to Crooms because they phased out, go over to Seminole, they phased out Crooms. And so I played football for Crooms. And we went to Seminole, about 8 of us, and we had an undefeated football team based on the 2 schools coming together. And so that was another big feat for me as a kid because I wanted to play against Seminole at Crooms and see if we could beat the white high school. It was a white high school, black high school, but we never really had that chance. We played against them several times but lost. But we thought my senior year we had a good chance to beat Seminole.
Okay. Now, did you play any other sports?
No, not really. Football was my love. I love playing football. Baseball, I wasn't really good at baseball. So my brother, he played baseball. I played football.
Okay. What do you remember from your early childhood in this area?
Well, when I tell a story about Sanford, one of the best stories is when I was with my grandma, and that's when they still had the word colored water fountain and white water fountain, and my grandma was going up to pay the light bill. And I tell a story about my grandma was at the window paying the light bill, and I was drinking all the white water I could drink, and that's my story. And as I was drinking all the white water I could drink, everybody in the building stopped. And so my grandma was watching the expression of the lady that was on the other side of the counter looking back over at me. And she turned around and looked at me and told me to why don't you get away from that water fountain, boy, get away from that water fountain. But I still drank me some more white water though, and so nothing happened. And
okay.
So that's my white water story.
Okay. And you grew up in Sanford?
I left for a little while.
Okay.
As I went out to UCF, I had got my degree in criminal justice, and I never really used it in criminal justice. I was brought up by my granddad. My granddad was always a salesman. He was working on stuff, selling stuff. He had a barber shop, and when I got older, I wanted to sell stuff. So I sold cars. I did life insurance, and I wouldn't be a businessman without a card. And so this is me. I do Medicare, and so that's my story. I've been in sales off and on most of my life. I did a beauty supply business with black hair care products to put in salons. So that's basically what I've been doing.
Now, do you live close by still, or have you ventured out?
I'm about 4 blocks over on the street called Bay Avenue, and so I have a family house. This is a little run down. I'm gonna go back over there hopefully next year and start fixing that back up and get that back up so the relatives can have something. That's where it all started, really, on 1122 Locust Avenue.
Okay.
So that's most of the stories that I can tell you.
All right.
That I thought was important.
Is there any special celebrations or things like that you remember growing up in Georgetown?
The biggest thing in Georgetown, I'm almost pretty sure everybody spoke about this, was Christmas, because they would close Locust off, and we skated on Locust during the Christmas holidays, and everybody in Sanford would come on Locust, and we'd be on our skates, all the kids, and that was a great time during the holidays, because everybody on skates, and everybody from Georgetown, Midway, Goldsboro, Lake Monroe, they'd be on Locust from Surrey all the way down. The city would block off Surrey and Locust all the way down to 7th Street in Locust, and we would skate. At that time, that's probably one of the only, maybe 2 streets. That was the only complete street that ran from the white neighborhood to downtown to the lakefront that was paved. Now, Sanford Avenue was paved, but you had white businesses. But when you go into Georgetown, I think the only street that was completely paved, and from the white neighborhood to the lakefront, it was Locust. I think Cypress was halfway paved, but I don't think it was, I'm quite sure it wasn't completely paved. But from Sari Avenue to all the way down to the lakefront, Locust ran. And so that was one of the main streets for everybody to come down, white or black. And so, driving down.
Ice skates.
No, roller skates.
Roller skates. Okay, I was thinking ice skates.
No, roller skates.
Okay.
Everybody had to have a pair of Union 5 roller skates, or you wasn't a real skater. You was an amateur skater if you had any other name brand.
Okay. Do you have any experience with shopping in the Georgetown area? And
Well, experience, if you're talking as a teenager.
Teenager, young, remembrances?
Yeah. Sanford has always been a strange place. Sanford always as far as I'm concerned, always wanted to go back in time. Sanford was never what I call a progressive place. I spent most of my adult time over in Orlando. I lived in Sanford, but I always felt much comfortable in Orlando than in Sanford. One of my stories is Winn-Dixie. I bought some peanuts from a Kiwanis club that was in front of the Winn-Dixie, and I put the peanuts in the back of my pants pocket. Now, I've been going in this store all my life, I didn't really know the management team personally or nothing like that, but I knew most of the people that was working the cash register, But that day I went in there, I had the pecan package in my back pocket, and the label was sticking out of my pants. And so I'm on one of the aisles, and as I look up down one aisle, I see that they got 2 employees at the end of the aisle. And when I look down the other aisle, they got 2 employees at the other end. So now my mind wondering what's up. And so the only thing I could think of is that they see something. And so I grab my pocket and I feel where the label of the peanuts was sticking out. And so I pulled the peanuts out of my pocket and explained to everybody that these peanuts was purchased on the outside of the store. And if anybody tried to approach me, I'm gonna kick their butt. That's exactly what I said, but it's something a little bit more stronger than that. And so they all disappeared, just like that. And so now that's one of the biggest things that I remember coming up. First Street was always interesting as a kid, but I never really participated on First Street as an adult. I did more in the last 10 years when the mayor, what was I can't even think of his name. He died just recently. I think he had about a 10-year run. He did more to bring people together than any of the other previous mayors, and I like what he was trying to do. And so you can find me now somewhere on Sanford Avenue, somewhere having a drink or eating something. But I would never do that 20 or 30 years ago. I never felt really comfortable. The Sanford between the Sanford police and the sheriff department, strange things always happen.
Yeah. When did you see that kind of changing?
The last 10 years.
Last 10 years?
Yeah.
In the 2010s?
Yeah, I never really felt comfortable in Sanford. And the new mayor came in, and first thing he tried to do was bring also, besides the regular white business folks, he tried to find some black business folks also, or he tried to help whoever was trying to open up something. And see, Sanford, that was never, when I was coming up.
Right.
So, but he did that, and like I said, that was one of the first individuals that I seen that tried to make contact with people of color, and so I thought that was a good thing. And if he was going to try, I was going to try to do business with individuals up on Avenue, Sanford Avenue and First Street.
Okay.
And I had I didn't say nothing about the females. I had my mother, my grandma. I had the complete. My mother was a teacher also, so I talked about the males, but I better throw the females in also, because I don't want nobody that because I had a strong group of parents, and so my grandma She was very active in the church. My mom was a middle school teacher, and so I take my hats off for them because they all pushed us in the right direction. Now, whether or not we completed the right direction, that might be another story, but they pushed us all in the right direction.
Okay. Okay. Now, you said your mother was a teacher, middle school teacher.
Well, at that time, Midway had school. The school went from first grade to ninth grade, and she was teaching eighth grade math. And so that's why I say middle school, but really it was one through 9.
Okay. All right. Not sure what other things there are to ask, but do you have anything else you'd like to talk about or bring up as a topic?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is how important something like this is being done, because there's a lot of history. You have those. If you see that wall of pictures out there, I have an auntie on there. Really, I got an auntie by marriage and an auntie by blood out there. I come from a strong family of educators, teachers, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm very proud for the direction that they always push for. And what y'all doing is bringing light on that. And I want to, tip my hat to them. Some of them aren't here anymore, but they did the right thing, and that was important. And I want to make sure, I give them they props. Because as a kid, they always was pushing us in the right direction. And for whatever the conversation about integration, segregation, and all that kind of stuff, you had people who still knew how important education was going to be, and they pushed us to go further. And that was I always thought that was a great thing. That's what I tell my grandkids now. My job is to push you to go further than I went. And so the teachers did it for me, my parents did it for me, and I try to take that story, and I think that's important, that somebody is recognizing. That's the strong fiber of any community, is the people who push the kids to go further. I think that's a good thing.
And did you have brothers and sisters, and
Yeah.
they all turn out like you?
Well, some people might consider me the black sheep, but I have a strong personality. I got low tolerance for certain stuff, so I might speak out when others might not speak out. But the bottom line is, they all have the skill set to do whatever they want to do. Now, whether or not they live up to it or not, that's a different story. My brother is retired. He worked for the school board, and I think he did over 30-some years. And so my sister, she's really the smartest out of the 3 of us. And so now she could be anything she wanted to be. Now she got some beautiful kids, beautiful grandkids, but she had her good days and her bad days. But she has a very beautiful family, and I'm very proud of them also. And so those are the things that I recognize, that we all have the opportunity because we had people pushing us in the right direction.
Right. Okay. Anything else to add?
No, like I said, I just want to put a little story about the Sam Wright Sr., the family. It was a complete family. I had, like I said, it was males and females, because I can't really leave my grandma. My grandma really taught me more than any of them. If I told the truth, my grandma the one who taught me how to fight. My grandma, and my grandma was a little lady, but she was real feisty. And so my biggest story of growing up was my mother, the teacher, would explain to me how important it was to never start a fight. And they called me Little Sammy. That's what they called me. My mom said, Little Sammy, now, I don't want you hitting people first. Now, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. But I never want you to hit them. Now, my grandma saw me in a little scuffle. My grandma walked me in the house and grabbed me and choked me and explained to me, you don't let nobody do you like that, boy. And so I tell everybody from that day on, it was a different me. My personality was, I'm gonna get you before you get me. And so if we were having problems, you didn't have to worry about finding me because I'm going to find you before you find me. And so I got that from my grandma. And I tell my daughter the same story. Also, I have one kid, and we lived in Winter Haven for a while. And she had a similar situation. And the little boy she had a fight with was about 2 years older than me. And she come in the house crying. And I didn't really know what to do, but I went to my grandma bag and I looked her in the eye and told her, this is not acceptable. I'm not telling you you got to beat nobody, but you're not gonna let nobody hit on you and you don't hit them back. And that day there, I think I started something because she went back out there and handled her business. And because she came back and told me, you said you weren't gonna let me back in the house. You said you weren't gonna let me back in the house. And so that's what I tell my daughter with her kids. You know, you have to be prepared for this world, and it's not a fair world. So don't think being fair is gonna be the fix for everything, because sometimes it's not. You got to do what you got to do, and so that's what I learned from my grandma. You got to do what you got to do. You don't let nobody. Her story was very simple. You don't make nobody make you less than. You're gonna be either equal than or greater than, but not less than. So now that's my story from my grandma that was married to Sam Wright Sr. And so that's where I get all my beliefs from, is from her. And that was a church going lady, but if you ever got her going, hey, that was a whole nother story. Whole nother story. So that's my story. I think I done got the females in and the males in. So if any relatives come after me, like I said, I did the best I could. I tried to put everybody on paper.
Yeah, all right.
All right.
Well, thank you, Samuel. It's
Okay.
very nice meeting you.
All right.
And this concludes the oral history in Georgetown on October 15th, 2022.
Okay.
Thank you
very much. All right. You have a nice evening.